They called him the Torso Killer and the Butcher of Times Square. Richard Cottingham wasn't your stereotypical monster lurking in the shadows. He was a seemingly ordinary man who harbored a darkness that would leave a trail of blood and terror across New York City in the 1970s and 1980s. His double life, filled with gruesome acts of violence, shocked and horrified a city already on edge due to rising crime rates and social upheaval. Cottingham's story is a chilling reminder that true evil often hides in plain sight, and his heinous crimes continue to fascinate and horrify true crime enthusiasts to this day. Richard Cottingham was a computer programmer, a husband, and a resident of a bustling metropolis. Yet beneath this ordinary facade lurked a sadistic predator. Cottingham's reign of terror stands as a chilling reminder of the evil that can walk among us. This article will delve into the depravity of his crimes, the fear he instilled, and the challenges faced by law enforcement in bringing him to justice. Cottingham's crimes were not just murders. They were acts of extreme cruelty and sadism. The nature of his killings, which often involved brutal torture and mutilation, set him apart from other serial killers of his time. As we explore his life and crimes, we will uncover the psychological and social factors that may have contributed to his monstrous behavior and examine the lasting impact of his actions on his victims' families and the broader community for years. Women, particularly sex workers, vanished without a trace. The lack of a clear connection between the victims and the brutality of the killings made it difficult for police to establish a pattern. The fear in New York's underbelly was palpable. Women working the streets became wary of every customer, the ever-present threat, a suffocating weight on their lives. Law enforcement faced significant obstacles in tracking down Cottingham. The transient nature of many of his victims, combined with the lack of sophisticated forensic technology at the time, made it challenging to connect the dots. Each crime scene presented a grim puzzle, with few clues and a mounting sense of urgency. The psychological toll on the detectives and officers involved in the case was immense, as they grappled with the horror of the crimes and the pressure to bring the killer to justice. Cottingham specifically targeted young women, often in their late teens to mid-20s. He frequented bars, luring his victims with promises or feigning camaraderie. His methods were as calculated as they were horrific. He'd use drugs to subdue them before taking them to secluded locations. There he would bind and torture them, indulging in sadistic acts before ultimately killing them by strangulation or suffocation. Trophies, like jewelry or personal items, served as grim reminders of his crimes. The brutality of his killings and the dismemberment of some victims further complicated investigations and instilled a profound sense of unease in the city. Cottingham's background and early life offer some insight into the making of a killer. Born in 1946 in the Bronx, New York, Cottingham appeared to have a relatively normal childhood. However, there were early signs of deviant behavior, such as an obsession with pornography and violent fantasies. His seemingly ordinary life, marked by a stable job and a family, masked a growing darkness that would eventually erupt into a spree of violence. As a computer programmer, Cottingham had the technical skills and meticulous nature that he applied to his crimes. His ability to lead a double life, maintaining a facade of normalcy while committing horrific acts, allowed him to evade suspicion for many years. The contrast between his public persona and his hidden brutality is a disturbing testament to the complexity of human nature. The timeline of Cottingham's crimes reveals an organized and escalating pattern of violence. His first known murder occurred in 1967, but it wasn't until the late 1970s that his killings became more frequent and brutal. The dismemberment and mutilation of his victims were not just acts of violence, but also expressions of deep-seated sadism and a desire to exert control and power over his victims. In 1980, a motel maid's quick thinking led to Cottingham's capture. A scream from a room rented under a fake name prompted her to alert the authorities. The police found a woman, thankfully alive, bound and traumatized. Cottingham, caught in the act, was finally apprehended. This arrest brought a sliver of relief to a city haunted by fear. However, the true scale of his crimes was yet to be fully understood. The investigation into Cottingham's activities uncovered a horrifying pattern of abuse and murder. Detailed accounts from surviving victims provided crucial evidence that painted a picture of a sadistic predator who derived pleasure from inflicting pain and suffering. Cottingham targeted petite blondes in their late teens, mid-20s, and most often prostitutes. He would solicit them somehow, drug them by spiking their drinks with Tweenol, a date rape drug used before Rohypnol became available, in bars, and take them somewhere secluded, usually to a motel, where he would bind them, gag them with duct tape, brutally rape, torture, and stab them before killing them by strangling them with a ligature. Presumably, to make identification harder, he would sometimes cut off their heads and hands and take the parts with him. Among his known methods of torture were severely biting and scratching their nipples, cutting around the breasts, threatening them with a toy gun, and leaving it within their reach so they could try to grab it only to discover that it was fake. He would also make his victims call him master. He took trophies such as jewelry and other personal belongings. After the crimes, he went to great lengths to cover them up, sometimes hiding the bodies in secluded locations or even setting them and the room they were in on fire. Trial that followed was a harrowing experience for the victims and their families as they relived their trauma in the pursuit of justice. Cottingham's arrest and subsequent trial were pivotal moments in the fight against serial killers in the United States. The case highlighted the need for improved forensic techniques, better coordination among law enforcement agencies, and increased support for victims of violent crimes. The media coverage of the trial brought widespread attention to the issue of serial killings and the vulnerabilities of women in society. Richard Cottingham was convicted of 11 murders, although he confessed to many more. The exact number of his victims may never be known. His legacy is one of terror and loss. We remember the victims, women whose lives were brutally cut short. Cottingham's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and the need to protect those most vulnerable. The aftermath of Cottingham's crimes left deep scars on the families of his victims and the communities affected by his actions. Efforts to support these families and honor the memories of the victims have continued, with advocacy groups working to raise awareness about the dangers faced by vulnerable populations and the need for systemic changes to prevent such tragedies in the future. True crime continues to capture our attention, forcing us to confront the darkness that exists in the world. If you'd like to learn more about other cases, explore the true crime content available on this channel. We encourage you to share your thoughts and feelings about Richard Cottingham's crimes in the comment section below. Let's keep the memory of the victims alive and ensure their stories are not forgotten. Thanks so much for tuning in today, friends. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. If there's anyone special you'd love us to delve into next time, drop their name in the comments below. We're always eager to hear your thoughts, so don't hesitate to share them. And remember, your support means the world to us. So go ahead, give that like button a smash, hit subscribe, and spread the word by sharing this video with your circle. Until we meet again, keep the curiosity alive. With love, the Midnight Society.